Welcome to my second Rails Testing for Beginners video walkthrough. In this video, we're going to go through Chapter 5, a Rails model test Hello World. So unlike the last Hello World, which was just a Rails testing Hello World, this is a Rails model test Hello World specifically. We're going to go through 4 steps. We're going to initialize a Rails application, install RSpec, generate a user model, and then we're going to write a single test for that user model. And that's all. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to follow my own instructions here. First, I'm going to initialize an application. I'm going to call the application model test hello world using the -t flag saying no tests. Okay, and that's going to take a second to install the gems. And then the next step is going to be to install the RSpec gem, which just involves adding RSpec Rails to the development and test group in the gem file. Okay. So I'm going to cd into my directory here, make my initial commit, and then I'm going to go into my gem file and add RSpec Rails to development test. There we are. I'm going to save that, do a bundle install. After we do the bundle install, we need to do this RSpec install command, and you'll see why in a second. So right now, all that's different is our gem file and gemfile.lock. After I run this RSpec install command, here's what we have. We have this new .rspec file, which is like a config type thing. Requires spec helper, okay. And then inside of spec, we have these 2 files, Rails helper and spec helper. So between these 2, like I mentioned in the last video, Rails helper is the one I find myself working with much more than spec helper. Okay, now that those are in there, I'm going to say install RSpec. Okay, now I can actually create my user model. Now the fact that it's a user model as opposed to any other model, that's just an arbitrary choice. It could be anything. And the fact that it has 2 attributes, first name and last name, that's of course totally arbitrary too. Just picked them to have something. Okay, so now we have a user scaffold. I'm going to run my migration. Okay. And now we can get into the business of writing the actual test. First, I'm going to do a commit though. Add user model. Oops. Okay. So I'm going to create a new file called specmodelsuserspec.rb. Specmodelsuserspec.rb. Oh, there's already something here. It got generated for me. Okay, so we're just going to add this part, the meat of the test. And I'll explain what's happening here. So it might be easier to focus if I do that. We have this describe block here. We're saying describe the full name method, which doesn't exist yet. Then inside that describe block, we're going to say it concatenates first and last name. We have to generate a little bit of test data. We're creating a user with a first name of Abraham and last name of Lincoln. And we're expecting that the full name method on this user object returns Abraham Lincoln, the first name and last name together. Now if I run this, it's going to fail. It'll fail because that method doesn't exist. Undefined method full name for user. So then usually my next step is to do def full name. I'll define the method with no body. So I stop getting the undefined method error. Okay, now it's expecting Abraham Lincoln, but it got nil. So now, now I'm actually going to add the definition where I say first name, last name. And I expect that to pass. There, it passes. So there we have it. That is our Rails model test, Hello World. And again, that's from Chapter 5 of Rails Testing for Beginners.